A ceiling beyond gravity. An uncut gem awaiting polish. Claudio Echeverri is among the most exciting prospects in world football. An archetypal number 10 who is as forward-thinking as he is brave. That's how I'd describe Echeverri to someone who's never seen him start a game at senior level. A talent whose potential demands metaphor. But pay attention to how I've outlined what Echeverri is as a player. Ceiling, prospect, potential. These terms are entirely speculative, and at best speak of what is yet to come. How about the present? Have City signed a player or the idea of a player? I want to start with Guardiola's comments on Echeverri following his debut. Pep seemed to suggest that Echeverri is a small space footballer, i.e. a player who primarily excels in the pocket and within an opponent's defensive block. If that was the intent, I disagree because his influence transcends the pocket. For me, he's neither a small space player nor a large space player. He's both, with the traits to affect all offensive facets of the game. It's too reductive to label him as one or the other. Echeverri's large space qualities begin with his pace. He has an obscenely rapid burst of acceleration on him, with which he's able to bypass defensive lines with ease. This lends itself naturally to carrying the ball aggressively and with intent over significant distances. The midfielders behind him can rarely catch up, and the defenders ahead of him become at the mercy of his deceptive dribbling. There's something quite mesmeric in watching Echeverri engage in these attacking sequences. Obviously, they wouldn't be possible without his natural speed, but there's also a very strong mentality there, a fearlessness which walks the tightrope of naivety. That self-belief is more than justified considering his close control and dribbling ability, which make him a menace in the small spaces. Apologies for making this comparison, but the manner in which the ball just sticks to his feet, his agility, the way he's able to hold onto the ball even under intense pressure, his low center of gravity, it's all very Aguero. Now, of course, there are far more differences than similarities between the two, but being able to dribble well, quickly and sharply in central areas is a priceless game-breaking trait that both of these players share. That's just on the ball, by the way. Off it, Echeverri is the embodiment of energetic, demanding the ball, constantly making short and sharp, penetrative runs between opposition lines and within the defensive block, always asking questions of his opponents. Often, there is no answer. He plays with such dynamism and blissful courage that fouling him is usually the default response. And when Echeverri combines his fantastic small space control with his large space carrying, he's continually able to receive and control the ball under pressure, dribble his way out of and through the opposition's press, and then sprint directly towards goal. So in one movement, he can beat the press, get his team up the pitch, and get his team into a dangerous goal creation or scoring position. His chance creation via the pass is also incredibly direct and brave. We'll touch on it in more detail in the next section, but suffice to say that Echeverri adores a forward pass. Not only can he break opposition lines with his pace and carrying, he can simply pass through them. He's far more naturally inclined to create for others than to take a shot himself. Indeed, he's not yet illustrated that he's much of a goal scorer, and whilst that will need to improve, that passing ability is far more interesting to me. This season has illustrated that City need more passers in their squad. Losing Rodri to injury and replacing him with Kovacic for the most part destroyed City's passing floor. You want players like Echeverri in your squad at times like these. This makes him an incredibly vertical player, and that creation via the pass isn't limited to simple layoffs or flicks near the box. It comes from all directions at all angles and could occur at any moment. So this is a weapon perfectly suited for counter-attacking game states, general link-up play, releasing runners, and playing killer final balls through low blocks. He ranks in the top 10 for shot assists per 90 in the Argentinian league compared to other attacking players, helping to create just over 2 shots a game. And while some may point to his relatively poor passing accuracy, around 80%, this is an almost meaningless stat for a creative attacking midfielder. Players tasked with taking risks and making something happen out of nothing will always suffer in this metric. Much has been made of his physicality, or maybe lack thereof, that he'll be bullied in the athletic Premier League. We'll get more into that later, but I don't agree that Echeverri is a fundamentally weak player. Now, of course, he's not the strongest, but he has a good habit of riding challenges. He'll often be successful in duels, he has no right in winning, and he strikes me as a player who, long-term, won't allow physical deficiencies to impair his game. That's partly due to his exuberance, endeavour, and strong mentality. Logistically, where could he play for City? To maximise Echeverri, you'd need to play him in the high centre of the pitch and field players ahead of him who are naturally inclined to make runs in behind opposition defences, such as Marmoush and Haaland, to get the most out of his passing tendencies. I'm not certain he's a natural fit for a double 8-10 system and would more likely benefit at the tip of a diamond midfield, where he can thrive as the sole offensive midfielder in front of a more stable midfield base. If it were to be a double 8-10 system, his partner would probably need to be comfortable dropping deeper and receiving under pressure. In respect of the out of possession shape, his most logical starting position would be pressing as one of the two strikers in a 4-4-2, although a false winger system could also be used where Echeverri starts on the wings and is pushed into the centre via a fullback. So, are there any concerns with Echeverri? Well, there are minor things, such as how one-footed he is when shooting, but overall, and on balance, he's great. Wonderful. Get him in the team right now. Right? There's no doubting his innate talent, but I do fear he's become overrated by the City community. Very overrated, and that unreasonable and unfair expectations have been placed on his 19-year-old shoulders before he's even kicked a ball in the Premier League. Some have already earmarked him as City's saviour. Many were calling for him to start as soon as he signed, that the team should be built around him. I hate to be that guy, but fundamentally, he's not as good as you may think. Yet. Please pay attention to my language there. That is not the same as saying he's not good. But there is a reason I was in no rush to release this video. He was never going to be significantly involved this year. I'm amazed Pep brought him on in the FA Cup final, and I'm disappointed that Pep threw him in at the deep end in a cup final. Just on that FA Cup final performance, it was fine to good. I liked the runs he made, I liked how he kept asking for the ball, but I just thought it was a significant overreaction from City fans. And it hasn't done anything to change my view that he's not ready to start for a City side wanting to compete for titles. But you know what? That's fine. It's not a problem that he's not yet good enough, nor should that be expected. We must be realistic here. Whilst he's been brilliant for Argentina's youth sides, he hasn't even made a senior international squad. He is a teenager with just one full season of club experience. And even in that season, he wasn't starting every single week, and he'd often be used out wide. This brings us to Guardiola's comments, the rumours of a loan next season, and the fact that Echeverri's first minutes appeared to be given out of desperation. Why? Well, age and experience, as I've just covered, pecking order also, but another area of concern is physicality. There are far less athletic demands in youth football and the Argentinian league compared to the Premier League. And whilst I did push back on the idea that he's a physical liability, he is, objectively, short in stature, slight in frame, and hasn't yet developed the fitness or stamina levels required for Premier League football. Given City's well-documented athletic struggles this season, it wasn't an optimal time to integrate him. Perhaps his most glaring weakness, and possibly the reason for his lack of selection by Pep thus far, is his decision-making. Take this action, for example. It's a wonderful illustration of Echeverri's central dribbling ability and bravery. There were several instances where he could have lost the ball, but instead he took 3 opponents on at once, beat the press, and forced himself and his team into a dangerous situation. So why have I flagged this as a potential issue? It worked, isn't that all that matters? Well, no, not really. Too often, Echeverri's decision-making is high risk, low reward. If he's dispossessed at any point here, all of a sudden, his team are facing a needless high and dangerous turnover. There were several safer options on for Echeverri, and whilst it's admirable that he's a player always wanting to make something happen, always willing to take a risk, it's essential he learns how and when to take those risks. Now, this didn't matter at all in the context of the final few minutes of the FA Cup final, where City were up against a low block and were desperate to score a goal. They needed risk takers on the pitch, as there was nothing to lose. But across an entire season, against more adventurous opposition, the point stands. Many football fans have it in their heads that a forward pass is good, while a lateral or backward pass is bad. But passing isn't a simple dichotomy. Echeverri here is only interested in the forward pass. But had he scanned his surroundings, an area of his game that needs to improve by the way, he'd have seen his other teammate in a far more advantageous position. It's wonderful that Echeverri always looks for the forward pass, always wants to split an opponent's back line. And of course, that intrinsic nature should never be coached out of him. But he'll need to develop that decision making and awareness in the final third if he's to realise his potential. It's a similar story with his desire to burst into space and carry the ball forwards. It's a brilliant attribute of his, but there's a tendency there to hold onto the ball for too long, rather than simply releasing it. And this is aggravated when one considers Echeverri's position, the centre of the pitch, where mistakes are more readily punished, and losing the ball is far more detrimental than losing it out wide. Pep noted that Echeverri wouldn't be heavily used this season, and it wouldn't surprise me if this was the key reason why. Of course, things can change. Maybe Echeverri matures rapidly in training and over the summer, but I think we could see, in the very early stages of his City career, if indeed he has a City career, Echeverri instead being used as a wide player where any mistakes caused by his high-risk nature would be lessened. I'm in no way advocating for this. I'd much rather players be played in their actual positions, nor do I think it will definitely happen, but it could be a good way to slowly embed him into the side naturally. Despite many City fan pleas, there's no rush, and perhaps the best time to introduce Echeverri into the side was not when City were fighting for their lives in respect of Champions League qualification. My point here isn't to put a downer on Echeverri as a player. I'm just trying to rationalise why he's not yet broken into the City team. I appreciate that may have been quite a jarring analysis and not what you wanted to hear. So let me end on a relatively positive note. Whilst it's impossible to envisage a player's ceiling in absolute terms, and whilst the sample size isn't great, I'd predict he's destined for the absolute top. His talent is simply too great for him to fail. If everything goes how it could, how it should, in respect of his development, we're looking at the makings of the best 10 in the world. So there is absolutely good reason to be excited about what Echeverri could become in time, but that is not the player he is right now. He's not going to turn into that player by merely giving him a run in the side, and it doesn't do him any favours to overrate his current competence. Now, whether Echeverri achieves his potential at City is another matter. Signing a superstar attacker, for example, would introduce an almost insurmountable obstacle. On the topic of signings, I'll be making analysis videos for all of City's summer signings. I haven't forgotten Vitor Hayes, by the way. So if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out. Thank you so much for watching, and shout out to my hardcore channel member ultras, Tony, Spartacus, Silver Splits the Blue, and Ethan. Have a good day, guys.